The military of ancient Egypt was one of the most formidable forces of its time. For thousands of years, the armies of Egypt were responsible for securing the borders of the Nile Valley and expanding the reach of the pharaohs. The military played an integral role in the history and culture of ancient Egypt, and its influence can still be seen in the country today. Origins and early history. The origins of the Egyptian military can be traced back to the pre-dynastic period, around 5000 BCE. At this time, warfare was primarily carried out by small groups of nomadic tribes and local militias. As Egypt began to emerge as a unified state, the role of the military became more important. During the early dynastic period, c. 3150, 2686 BCE, the Egyptian military consisted of a standing army and a reserve force. The standing army was composed of professional soldiers who were trained in combat and tactics. The reserve force was made up of able-bodied men who were called upon to fight in times of need. The Old Kingdom, c. 2686 to 2181 BCE, saw the development of the chariot, which revolutionized warfare in the region. The chariot allowed for greater mobility and speed on the battlefield, and the Egyptian military quickly incorporated this new technology into their army. Chariot warfare became a hallmark of ancient Egyptian military strategy and was a key factor in their military success. The Middle Kingdom, c. 2055 to 1650 BCE, saw the emergence of the Nubian threat to the south, and the Egyptian military had to adapt to this new challenge. Nubia was rich in natural resources, and the Egyptians were determined to maintain control over this region. The military developed new tactics and weapons to deal with the Nubian threat, including the use of archers and the construction of fortifications along the border. Organization and tactics. The Egyptian military was organized along strictly hierarchical lines, with the pharaoh at the top as the commander-in-chief. Below the pharaoh were the various generals who were responsible for leading the individual regiments and divisions of the army. The army was composed of several different types of soldiers, including infantry, archers, charioteers, and cavalry. The infantry was made up of both conscripts and professional soldiers, and was responsible for engaging in hand-to-hand combat. Archers were an important part of the army, and were used to soften up enemy positions before the infantry engaged. Chariots were used primarily for reconnaissance and to harass the enemy, while cavalry was used to pursue fleeing enemies. The Egyptians employed a variety of tactics on the battlefield, depending on the situation. One common tactic was to form a phalanx, in which the infantry would form a tight formation with their shields overlapping. This provided a strong defense against enemy attacks and allowed the Egyptians to push forward in a coordinated manner. Another tactic was to use chariots to attack the enemy flanks and disrupt their formations. The chariots would ride in, discharge their archers, and then withdraw before the enemy could engage them in hand-to-hand combat. This would cause confusion and disarray among the enemy ranks, making them easier to defeat. Weapons and equipment. The Egyptian army's most common weapons were the bow and arrow, spear and axe. The bow was used primarily for long-range attacks, while the spear and axe were used in close combat. Soldiers were also equipped with shields made of wood or leather, which provided protection against arrows and other missiles. Armor was not a standard issue for Egyptian soldiers, but some wore linen or leather cuirasses and helmets. The weapons and equipment used by the Egyptian military evolved over time, as new technologies and materials became available. During the Old Kingdom, soldiers were equipped with bronze-tipped spears and axes, as well as simple wooden shields. As mentioned earlier, the chariot became an important part of the Egyptian military during this period, and charioteers were equipped with bows and arrows for ranged combat. During the Middle Kingdom, the Egyptians began to use bronze swords and daggers, as well as improved versions of their existing weapons. Famous battles. One of the most famous battles in ancient Egyptian history was the Battle of Megiddo in 1457 BCE. This battle was fought between the armies of the Egyptian pharaoh Thutmose III and a coalition of Canaanite kings. The Egyptian army was outnumbered, but Thutmose III used his superior tactics to defeat the Canaanite forces. The Battle of Megiddo is significant because it is the first recorded battle in history in which tactics, rather than brute force, were used to achieve victory. Another notable battle in ancient Egyptian history was the Battle of Kadesh in 1274 BCE. This battle was fought between the armies of the Egyptian pharaoh Ramesses II and the Hittite king Muwatalli II. The battle was fought in the Levant, near the city of Kadesh. The Hittites initially had the upper hand, but Ramesses II managed to rally his troops and turn the tide of the battle. The Battle of Kadesh is significant because it is the largest chariot battle in history, and is also one of the first battles in which peace negotiations were conducted after the fighting had stopped. In addition to its military might, ancient Egypt was also known for its naval prowess. The Egyptians were skilled seafarers, and their navy played a critical role in protecting Egypt's trade routes and conducting amphibious operations. The navy was composed of both warships and transport vessels, which were used to transport troops and supplies to various parts of the empire. Despite its many successes, the Egyptian military was not invincible. The country faced numerous invasions over the centuries, including invasions by the Hyksos, Assyrians, Persians, and Greeks. The invasions eventually led to the decline of ancient Egypt's military power. Thanks for watching. Don't miss out on our latest stories. Hit the like button and subscribe today.